This video is made to teach you how to use figurative language and poetic devices in poetry. Don't think about the process as randomly sticking a bunch of figurative language into your poem, okay? I want you to use figurative language and poetic devices as tools to help you express your ideas in your poem. So you have to start with the ideas, like what are you trying to say? What is your purpose? What's your purpose of writing this poem? What do you want the readers to get out of this poem? The first thing you need to do is start with an idea. Let's say you want to write this poem like about a specific painful experience with unrequited love. First, it's good to know that unrequited love is when you love someone or have a romantic feeling for a person, but he or she doesn't love you back or feel the same way you feel about them. So the idea you're trying to express in your poem is how much that hurt. What does it feel like? Metaphors is something we use every day. Some people think of metaphors as nothing more than the sweet stuff you hear in songs and in poetry. But in fact, all of us speak, write, and think in metaphors every day. They can't be avoided. The definition of a metaphor is a figure of speech in which an implied comparison is made between two unlike things that actually have something important in common. For example, you're captain of recess dodgeball and I'm that slow-moving loser kid that you don't want to choose for your team. Another example is, I'm an almond joy, but you don't like coconut. Or, he set up his heart on her tee and she drove it into a sand trap. I know that's super weird, but I'm really trying to stay in the theme of the whole requisite love thing, so just follow along. The definition of a simile is a figure of speech in which two fundamentally things are compared, usually in a phrase introduced by like or as. Notice the like or as, okay? Make sure you use those when you're creating or talking about or identifying a simile. An example of a simile is when I told you how I felt, it was like I was the Domino's delivery guy bringing you a pizza you didn't order or want. Another example is you dealt with my heart as a cleaver deals with meat. Like a cleaver is those big knives that chop up meat. That's really messed up because it slice it into, so you just split my heart into. I thought that was very cool. Okay, moving on. Similes versus metaphors. The relationship between these two are so close. Sometimes I consider a metaphor to be a condensed simile. That is, someone who runs like lightning. That's a simile, by the way. Someone who runs like lightning can be called a lightning runner. You get it? So, if you're using a simile, it would be someone who runs like lightning. But when you want to use it as a metaphor, you would just be oh, that's a lightning runner. You know what I mean? One have the word like, one does not. It's very... Hyperlapse is a figure of speech. It's a form of irony in which exaggeration is used for emphasis or effect. An extravagant statement, okay? Seriously, exaggeration. It's often confused with a simile or a metaphor because it often compares two objects, but the difference is a hyperbole is an exaggeration. Remember that. It's just exaggeration. An example of that is, no one takes the taste out of peanut butter quite like unrequited love. That was said by Charlie Brown. He was right, Charlie Brown is a super whack cartoon now, but it really taught a lot, if we would have really been paying attention. And it's kind of why can't he just say it sucks when someone don't love you back? But instead, he exaggerates and say, nothing takes the taste out of peanut butter. And another example is, your heart is as cold as ice. Personification. The definition of this is it's usually like a figure of speech, generally considered a type of metaphor in which an inanimate object or abstraction is given love, unrequited, robs me of my rest. Love, hopeless love, my ordained soul encumbers love, nightmare-like lies heavily on my chest, and weaves itself into my midnight slumbers. Like, my favorite line ever. Another example can be your rejection, punch me in the gut, and then toss me into a ditch. You illusions is a brief, indirect reference to a person, place, or event, real or fiction. It can be something as simple as, I asked you out, I went big and large, but lost the battle like Pickett's charge. I forgot what I was saying. Okay. The alteration definition is a repetition of initial consonant sounds, as in a peck of pickled peppers. You see the PPP? That is a repetition of the letter P. Listen closely to this. This is what counts as an alteration. We beat the drums and we bask in the sun. With only 2 words, they must be nearly side by side to make an alteration. Like, we beat books and bats in the sun. You see how they're almost right nearly side by side? Or if you space the words out, you need like a bunch of them to make an alteration. Like, the tiger dipped his tongue into the 2-liter bottle of truth. Some more examples is like, the summer circus clowns scare me. And notice that though summer and circus start with different letters, it has the same consonant sound that's repeated. That happens in consonants like S, C, and Z, and K. They sometimes have the same sounds, this is stuff like you learn like way back in pre-K, but you just now using it again. Just keep that in mind, it all sounds alike, like so, well, I mean, I hear it, but they're not bright like that all the time. Let me read the rest. Circus clowns is not an alteration because though both words begin with a C, they have different consonant sounds. Yeah, like circus and clowns. That's just like, oh my gosh, that's totally like different start offs. You should know that because the CL is a consonant blend, and the CI is not, Okay, moving on. Assonance. The definition of that is it's the repetition of identical or similar vowel signs in neighboring words. Okay, the one before was the consonants. This one is the vowels. Example of that is, I must confess that in my quest I felt depressed and restless. He was rich, yes, richer than a king. That was an easy one. What counts as an assonance? We pet the dogs and wonder about frogs. Another one is the frogs on the log's paws. Notice that logs and paws, though spelled differently, contains the same vowel sounds. I know you know this, but again, like sometimes when you're asked to write an assonance, people forget about it. Like, the AU is a vowel digraph. It's a blend. 2 vowels make 1 sound. Please remember that because oftentimes, you'll have one. I'm sure you're going to write one. And then I'm going to look at it and I'm be like, oh, this is an assonance. And then you're not going to list it as one. Just look up. Last but not least, parallel structure. Remember, parallel structure is not just about repeating words. It's about repeating a grammatical structure.